Hi, thanks for joining us on Encore. Coming up, Apple creator Steve Jobs gets the biopic treatment, and Anomalisa confounds and delights in equal measure. And Mad Max director George Miller is to head up this year's Cannes Film Festival jury.
What is it to be human? What is it to ache? What is it to be alive?
Want to get through this? Let's go!
Well, I'm joined by our film critic Lisa Nesselson. Hi, Lisa.
Hello, Olivia.
Now, we're starting with a biopic. This is not just any old anonymous CEO of a large company. It is, of course, Steve Jobs, the founder of Apple Computers. The film is out in France today. Tell us more.
Well, I've been using Apple computers longer than many of the staffers here at France 24 have actually been alive. I bought my first Mac in January of 1985, and what it cost, even with the 30% journalist discount, would have been enough to buy a garret room in a Paris apartment building. That's not hyperbole, and it's very sad. Here's an artifact from roughly 30 years ago. This was supposed to be a stress-relieving device. It's the Smack 2, on Mac 2, and if your little diskette did not eject properly, you could bash it and feel much better. Steve Jobs, of course, thrived on stress, especially apparently creating it for other people, the people around him. He was not a nice man, as this film makes abundantly clear. The expression stern taskmaster seems to have been invented to describe him. So does the expression unrepented jerk, at least in this movie. But the company, built on his nasty personality, sold 78 million telephones last year that are also sound systems, cameras, and some people's best friends. I have to say, I saw Jobs in person give the keynote speech at Apple Expo many years ago here in Paris, and his casual showmanship was absolutely riveting. The film doesn't tell us how Jobs grew up or how he got to be such a jerk. It presents him in full-blown jerkdom, mostly in the wings, before 3 crucial product launches. And the dialogue by Aaron Sorkin, who also wrote The Social Network, is thrillingly good. Let's watch.
You can't write code. You're not an engineer. You're not a designer. You can't put a hammer to a nail. I built the circuit board. The graphical interface was stolen from Xerox PARC. Jeff Raskin was the leader of the Mac team before you threw him off his own project. Everything, someone else designed the box. So how come 10 times in a day, I read Steve Jobs as a genius? What do you do?
I play the orchestra. And you're a good musician. You sit right there. You're the best in your row.
Hey, well, you definitely liked this film. Is there anything wrong with it?
Not that I can tell. The structure is smart, the acting is superb, it zips along at a thrilling pace. It's very, very talky, but it's also very, very visual. It was directed by Danny Boyle, who also brought us such films as Trainspotting and Slumdog Millionaire, so there's a pace there. When Jobs started out, there was absolutely no reason to believe that someday most people would have a personal computer, any more than thinking that someday everybody would have their own little space pod in which they could commute to the moon. So Steve Jobs' vision really did change our lives, and this movie does an incredible job of depicting how that came to be. And here is the director, Danny Boyle, on the irony at the heart of Mr. Jobs' personality.
A host of contradictions, his portrayal. He wants to give everybody in the world the power of these machines in their hand, and yet he wants to have complete control over that machine, so that the control is with him.
Well, the title, Steve Jobs, that's self-explanatory. We know what that film's about. But our next new release is not so obvious. A mysterious title here, Anomalisa, and apparently quite a curious film too.
Indeed, it is spectacularly creepy and unsettling, and I loved every minute of it. I've seen it twice, but I can imagine why some people wouldn't want to see it even once. It tackles what all great works of art should aim for, and that is, the essence of the human condition, nothing more, nothing less. And it does it with stop-motion animation. The decision was made that all but 2 of the characters have identical faces, and that brilliant touch is enough to put most viewers ill at ease, because your brain keeps going, wait a minute, how come everybody looks exactly the same. There are lots of speaking parts, but there are only 3 voice actors. David Thewlis voices Michael Stone, who's a motivational speaker and author, who has come to Cincinnati on a business trip. Jennifer Jason Leigh voices Lisa, an office worker who has come to hear him speak. And Tom Noonan plays everybody else, from a cab driver to a cocktail waitress to hotel staff.
Well, it sounds truly intriguing. Let's take a look at this clip.
Hi. Oh, my God. It's you.
Hi, I'm sorry to bother you.
No, not at all. Do you want to come in? Or?
I was just looking for someone. I think I've got the wrong...
Who's there, Em?
It's Mr. Stone. Michael Stone.
Really? Oh my God. Oh my God. Hello? Oh, do I look awful? I was just taking my makeup off. Oh my God. Ugh, don't look at me.
Hello? No, you look lovely.
I can't believe you're in our room. We came here from Akron just to hear you speak. Oh my God, please don't look at me.
Well, I'm certainly very flattered.
You can look at me.
Emily.
Well, I get what you mean about this creepy atmosphere, but what's it actually about, this film?
Well, it's co-directed by Charlie Kaufman, who wrote Being John Malkovich and The Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind. So it's about regret and routine and awkwardness and the possibility of feeling special in a mundane setting. It's about craving to connect and, what else? To something emotionally worthwhile, let's say. It has one of the most realistic sex films ever filmed, and yet it involves puppets. You've never seen anything quite like this. It's a romance full of awkward interactions, and you can never anticipate where it's headed. It couldn't be more artificial, and yet it positively hums with authenticity. The protagonists are tentative, but the execution is bold. Like I said, I loved it.
Okay, well, an interesting new development there for human cinema, let's say. Now, we've got some industry news, more for cinema makers than cinema goers. George Miller, the director, has been named as this year's Cannes Film Festival jury president. What do you make of that choice, Lisa?
I think that's an excellent choice, and I've worn a koala bear t-shirt in his honor. He's an Australian. He's a very talented man who has made all kinds of films, most recently Mad Max Fury Road, which far too many of my French colleagues persist in pronouncing Mad Max Fury Road. It's a thrilling action picture, but it's also about something such as the fate of humanity in terms of food and water and reproducing, and it's about the possibility of realizing when you're being lied to by the people who govern you. And it's a bold tip of the hat to just how strong women can be. And coincidentally, it's been nominated in, I believe, 10 categories at the Oscars. But Miller, he's, very good at this action stuff, but he also directed Babe, which is suitable for children, but certainly not just for children. He took one couple's relentless real-life search for a cure for their son's rare disease and made the thrilling Lorenzo Zoil. The Witches of Eastwick was incredibly entertaining. He made the animated Happy Feet, and the Mad Max movies may take place in dusty landscapes, but that penguin romp was actually the polar opposite. The interesting thing about a Cannes jury is that it tends to be made up of people with very strong opinions and strong personalities. But I think if George Miller, at age 70, was able to marshal all those people in weird vehicles for months on end in the middle of nowhere, he'll be very good at achieving consensus with a Cannes jury. I'm not worried.
Something of the jungle of the Cannes Film Festival coming up in, of course, May later on this year. Now, we're finishing with a French historical drama called Chocolat. This is starring Omar Sy, the actor who came to international prominence, actually, as the carer for a disabled man in Intouchable. That film was very successful here in France, and now he's playing a character called Chocolat. Who was he?
Well, Chocolat was the stage name of a Cuban named Rafael Padilla, who was sold to a European when he was just 8 years old. At the turn of the previous century, he and an established white clown named Georges Fouty formed a circus act that was a phenomenal success in Belle Epoque Paris. Fouty and Chocolat did nothing less than revolutionize what a circus act could do. Now, Fouty is played by James Thierry, who with age looks more and more like his real-life grandfather, who happened to be Charlie Chaplin. Here's Omar Sy explaining why he thought the story was worth telling.
Fouty and Chocolat were huge at the time, and now all that's been forgotten. So that was a big motivation. When you hear this story, you're amazed and mesmerized, and you have to tell it.
Well, Omar Sy there, we know him here in France for playing comic roles, but how did he take on this role of somebody who's had quite a lot of tragedy in their life?
Well, nobody was clamoring to see Omar Sy's negligible presence in Jurassic World. If you blinked, you missed it. But this pretty much is a role he was born to play. It makes use of his seemingly effortless charisma and his supple physicality and his more serious side. Fouti and Chocolate's sketches featured a lot of the white guy kicking the black guy and a lot of falling down, which French audiences, at least back then, found absolutely hilarious. And Chocolat was truly famous. Toulouse-Lautrec was a drinking buddy of his and sketched him multiple times. The Lumiere cameraman filmed the duo several times. Chocolat was used in national advertising campaigns that we would now say are, bottomlessly racist. But France fancied herself a standard bearer for human rights and also thought it was perfectly okay to have their colonies and to exploit the people there. Chocolat was an illegal alien in France, and when in the film he gets busted and thrown into prison, he has his consciousness raised by a Haitian intellectual, and the period recreations of Paris are splendid. This is an important and very well-made film.
Okay, so a glimpse into another time and another mindset, perhaps. That's all we've got time for. We'll leave you with a clip of Chocolat. Thanks, Lisa, for being with us, and thanks to you at home for watching. Remember, you can get more culture news on our website. We're also on Facebook and Twitter. There's more news coming up on France 24 after this.
La première fois qu'un blanc me fait confiance.
Qu'un clown blanc te fait confiance.
Il y a de la folie dans votre duo. Monsieur, Paris vous attend. Ben, Fouti, vous avez révolutionné le monde du cirque. N'abandonne pas tout sur un coup de tête.
Je veux tout pour toi. Et t'as la mémoire courte, mon ami.
Jamais un noir n'a été aussi célèbre.